Hello and welcome to another Digital Photo Mentor video. I am currently in gorgeous Penticton, British Columbia in Western Canada. I'm here to do a workshop this week with photography and wine. So I'm very excited. We start that tomorrow. But for today, I want to give you my first impressions and overview of the new Aurora HDR 2019. Let's have a look. Okay, so this is the welcome screen to the brand new Aurora HDR 2019. It is launching October 4th. So if you're seeing this video, it is now available as of October 4th. If it's before that, then it's available for pre-order. So you can go and sign up and check it out now. This is the welcome screen if you're using the standalone version. I'm actually going to skip over to Lightroom because I've got it installed as a plugin as well, and I've got a few images picked out here that I wanted to play with and show you a comparison between what I've done in Lightroom and what I've done in Photoshop. So this first image was shot at Blue Hour in the same area that I'm in right now, in the Naramata Bench in British Columbia. And I did a bracketed set of 3 images. And then this was the version that came out of Lightroom. So it did a pretty good job of merging, and the colors are really nice. And then this is the version that came out of HDR. So also nice. I was quite pleased with the tones. If we zoom in, the sharpness is really nice. It did a nice job of getting rid of some chromatic aberration that I had on the edge there. I've got a tiny bit more here, a little bit of red. Let's have a look at the Lightroom version. It's done a nice job there as well. So I found they were actually pretty comparable for this particular image. Aurora seems to be applying some sort of a lens profile. My Fuji gets applied automatically in Lightroom. So Aurora seems to be applying an extra lens correction, and I'm not sure how to get rid of it, but it seems to be just correcting for some distortion. It's neither here nor there. I could probably figure out where to turn it off, and if I wasn't comparing it to the other version, I'd be just fine with this one. So this is how it came out of Aurora, and it looks pretty good. I was pretty happy with that. Let's have a look at another example. I've got a few different ones here. This one was actually a 5-image merge going from extremely dark. You can see the histogram starting at 1,000th of a second, bracketing 2 stops apart. I always bracket 2 stops apart just to get the full information so that I have it available to me in the software later. The last one here is at a 15th of a second. You can see there's 5 brackets. So this is first one is the one that came out of Lightroom, and I've done a bit of processing to it after it came out of the Lightroom merge. So it basically, let's just get rid of these presets over here. So this is what it came out as out of Lightroom HDR, merged HDR, and then that's what it looked like after I played with some sliders. I may have done some additional, I don't think I did, local adjustments, but not in this case. I don't see that I've done any. So let's have a look at the Aurora HDR version. Again, it's applied a lens profile. The first thing that I noticed is the colors are a lot punchier in the HDR version, the Aurora version. So the first thing you have to know about using Aurora, and I'll pull these images in and give you a look, is you have to be really careful of going too far. I find that a lot of the presets and things do take it too far, but they have one called Natural, and I'll show you that looks pretty darn nice. And I've done some things like darkening the grass with an extra edge vignette, that type of thing. And I did some dodging and burning, which some of the really nice things that they have inside of the HDR for Aurora. This next one was just a really quick bracket to pick up the colors in this sunset. And it's not the greatest image, but I wanted to see what it would do with the contrast range. So this is what came out of Lightroom. Get rid of that. And that's the version that came out of Aurora. So there was some movement of the trees. You'll notice that when you bracket, and anytime you have something that's moving, like leaves are blowing in the wind, you see the tree moving there. Lightroom did a decent job of it, as did Aurora. And if we zoom in, you can see that there's no double images, there's no ghosting. It did a really nice job when you use the deghosting feature inside of Aurora. Okay, let's move on. This next one I did as a test because I shot it handheld. So you could see that as I go from one image to the next, the image is slightly moved a little bit. So I wanted to test the align image features and see what a good job each of the programs did. So the first one was Lightroom. And if I zoom in, I don't see any blurring. So it's done a pretty nice job of blending those images together and giving me a nice sharp image. Right? The tones are not bad. There's detail everywhere and looks pretty good. We'll just keep the histogram there for you. Right. Next one is the one that was done in Aurora. We'll zoom in. Let's take a look. Also looks really sharp. Okay, really nice. They both did a really nice job of aligning the images, getting rid of any ghosting. Something else you want to consider that might be moving in your scene is clouds. If they're moving quite quickly, you can get double images of the clouds unless you use the deghosting feature. So make sure that you do that. So let's compare these two. The left one being the Lightroom version and the right one being the Aurora version. I kind of like the Aurora version. Again, the colors are a bit punchier. There's a bit more detail in quite a few areas. And I did a little bit of dodging and burning again to bring out the leaves and the highlights. But overall, I think I like the Aurora version just a little bit better. And then this last one that I had in this example is a single image. So you can also open a single image into Aurora and do an HDR process on it. You're not going to get as much detail as if you'd bracketed, but if we look at this histogram, it's not super contrasty to begin with, so I thought it would be a good example. There's lots of detail. It's a Fuji RAW file. We should be able to pull lots of detail out of there, right? Let's see. Okay, so this is the Lightroom version. I got these opposite. So this is the Lightroom version. It's done a pretty nice job. There's lots of detail. It's a little on the blue side, and this is the Aurora version. It's a little bit darker and a little bit contrastier, so I could certainly, add a little bit of contrast into this one. We could warm it up a little bit and so on. I could probably get them matching a little bit closer, but once again, I find that the Aurora has a punchier color, and there's a filter inside Aurora that is also inside of Luminar. There's a lot of similarities in terms of filters for Luminar and Aurora. That's called color contrast, and I really like that one because it literally takes the same tone and adds contrast within that same color tone, and that's what it's come out to be here. Let's just put a little bit of shadows up. One of the reasons I like to do my bracketed shots from Lightroom into the plugin and then back again is I can still tweak them a little bit after the fact. I can do like add a vignette, that sort of thing. I've got my own vignette presets, which you can purchase if you need some Lightroom presets. So I can do a little tweaking after the fact. But I'm going to pull in this set of 5 that I did and do an example for you of how Aurora works, and you can sort of see the sliders and some of the features that are available. To get it to work as a plugin, you literally just have to, if you're on a Mac, you just have to open Aurora and choose install plugins. So you install whichever programs you're using. So I've done it for Photoshop and Lightroom. It's also available for Elements and for Aperture, right? So I've already done that. Once you install it for Lightroom, you do have to exit Lightroom and relaunch it. And then your where you will find it is you select your thumbnails like I've done here. So I've selected 5. You go up to the File menu on a Mac and plug in extras, and there it is. Okay, so if you right click and go send to Aurora, right, which you can do as well, and that works fine if you're only doing a single image. If you go this route, if you go edit in Aurora, you'll get a TIFF created for each one, and it'll try and open each one separately, not merge them together. So if you have a bracketed set, make sure that you go this way and you go plug in extras, Aurora 2019. And you could see in my plugins that I also have Aurora 2018 and 2017. And I've played with it a little bit in the past. I find that some of the improvements that are coming out in the newer version it's easier to get a more realistic look, and the HDR processing algorithm all the math that goes on in the background, it seems to do a nicer job as well. So I'm going to check off auto alignment. If you shot them on a tripod, you shouldn't need to, but I like to check anyways, just in case my tripod got bumped or it was breezy. You can remove some noise. You can do some deghosting. Now the grass in this scene was blowing in the foreground, so I am going to do some denoising. So you basically just turn on the ghost reduction. You can decide if you need a lot or little, so I'm going to go with medium. And generally I choose one of the darker images because it's going to have a faster shutter speed. So that's going to give me grass that's going to be sharper as opposed to the grass in the longer exposures, which will be blurry. Right? I'm going to turn on chromatic aberration to try and remove the purple or green fringe. And then we're going to just say create HDR and let it do its thing. So it works fairly quickly. Let's see how long it takes to get these. Now keep in mind, these are 5 raw files. And it's pulling data from all 5 of those. So it may take a minute. Okay, so here's the image is now opened in Aurora and blended. And I haven't touched anything. I haven't applied any presets. I haven't touched any filters. This is just how it came out. Now it did take about a minute to process. From when I loaded the 5 from Lightroom. Keep in mind that the more of those options you check off, the longer it's going to take to process. If you're doing the ghost removal, if you're doing the chromatic aberration, the alignment, each of those steps will take a little bit longer. So just have a little bit of patience as it's merging them, especially if you're dealing with 5 raw files as I have here. It's going to take a bit. Okay, so just to show you the before and after, and this is just sort of the auto tone that happens. I'm hitting the backslash key. And you can see that it's done a pretty nice job already of blending that image. If I was happy with that, I could just leave it there and be done with it. It's that simple, right? I'm going to show you what some of these presets do. Let's do this as an adjustment layer. So if you're already familiar with using the Skylum products like Luminar, they have a lot of the same features. You can add an adjustment layer here. You can add a new image layer if you want to blend in the sky. Or texture, that type of thing. So I'm going to add a new layer just because I'm going to apply the presets on top of that layer, right? And leave the original alone. So I'm going to click on the realistic landscape. There's a few different categories of presets. The presets are down at the bottom here. You could turn them off and on, right? You could turn your sidebar off and on. The ones that I've chosen are landscape because that's what my picture is. So I've chosen realistic landscape as my preset, and it looks pretty good. It's adding some, you can see what it's doing on the right hand side here on the filters. Anything that's orange has been applied, so it's applying color, HDR enhance, image gradient, a adjustable gradient, and a vignette. Okay, if we want to see what else it offers, we could get a better sunrise. That's a different preset, gives you a bit more yellow. You can have a bright landscape. You can have a warm landscape, and any of these can be dialed down. So they're at 100%, but you can apply them only partially if you like a little bit of what it does. Right? I kind of like the realistic one, right? And it's done a nice job. Now, if you want to see the difference between that and the original, it's brightening up things a little bit, right? You can even mask that. Because I did this as a layer, you can choose to add a mask to it in the brush, radial mask, or gradient mask, and only apply this preset to parts of the image, right? Let's have a look at what some of the other presets do. So if you find something right off the bat that you like, I'm going to try the natural. That looks good as well. You're literally done. You know, apply it and say you're good to go. Vivid. Or if you're like me and you want to see your other options, I tend to do the same thing when I'm eating dinner at a restaurant. Is I like to look at all the options. I like shopping, if you know what I mean. Girls might be with me, and guys, if you're non-shoppers, you might want to just get it done and get back over to Lightroom. Right? So you could pick a preset and literally hop back to Lightroom and finish it up, or you can tweak the sliders a little bit. Okay, so I've chosen one called HDR Look. It's not too bad. It's got a lot of detail. I might tone it down a little bit. That actually looks pretty good. Okay. I find that I'm liking this one called tonal compression. What it does is it's bringing all the detail in without sort of giving you that crunchy over HDR look, and I really like that. So I'm going to actually save this as one of my favorites by clicking the little star down here. And I'm going to go back to HDR look number 1 because I kind of like that one. I favored that as well. And I'm just going to dial it down ever so slightly. Let's go about 65%. Kind of happy with that. Okay, so if I like everything that's going on there, I'm just going to add one more layer, and we can apply some additional things on this top layer and just tweak things a little bit. All right, let's see what this one has done. So it's gone, it has added contrast just by opening each of the filters, and I've set them to single view mode, so I'm only seeing one at a time. And so you can see it's added contrast, smart tone. If you pull smart tone up to the right, it's like bringing your shadows up really far. Okay, I tend to like to pull things all the way and then back again just to see what they do. Okay, that looks pretty good. HDR Enhance is where it's adding structure and detail. If you want to see what any single filter is doing, just click the eyeball. It will turn it off and turn it back on again. Image Radiance is a similar one. You'll find that in Luminar. I really like it. It sort of adds a nice glow, and it avoids that sort of over crunchy look. I might even give it a bit more glow. Right? The adjustable gradient is kind of neat because what it does is it allows you to do a gradient on the top and the bottom that are different. Right? So you can set where sort of the horizon is. Now this one is removed highlights from the top, and it hasn't done anything on the bottom, but I'm actually going to set it so it's like this, and I'm going to darken this grass down a little bit. See what that's doing? And the lines you see here are the fade area. So if I go really far with my exposure, you can see, oh, that's actually done a really nice job. Right? So it's bringing the highlights down on the top. I don't want to go too far. Maybe I want to give a bit more warmth to the top area. And a little more shadows. That looks very nice. Let's do that. Okay, beautiful. And if you want to do anything else, you can add a dodge and a burn layer. Dodge and burn is a really cool thing. It allows you just click start painting down here. This is what it looks like. So you just click that, start painting. And then you get to choose, do you want to lighten or darken up at the top? And I usually change the strength to around 15 to 20% so that it's really subtle. Okay, so I'm actually going to lighten, and I want my brush a little smaller. You can use the square bracket keys to make it bigger and smaller, just like in Photoshop and Lightroom. And I'm actually going to go in here where there's already some highlights, and I'm just going to bring it out a little bit. Bring out this grass. And this area in here. Okay? So dodging and burning really allows you to highlight the areas that you want to feature. I might even have a little streak of light over there. And then you can darken. I'm going to do the same thing. So it allows you to add contrast and tone control in really specific areas. Right? So I'm going to actually darken this even more. So I'm darkening this edge a little bit. Just along there. This guy in that corner. Okay, so you get to decide if I want to add a little more contrast in here. Okay, let's see what it's doing. So see, it's very subtle, but it allows you really nice tone control. And you can do the same thing, of course, in Lightroom using the adjustment brush. Okay. One other one I was going to show you. The color, right? This is the color contrast. Now, I tend to really like this one a lot. Let's see if it's applied in the other one. If we pull it all the way up, you'll see what happens. It adds a lot of saturation, because anytime you increase the contrast or increase the blacks and the whites, you're going to naturally increase the saturation. So if I do that, you have to be really careful and kind of compensate by turning down the saturation. Right? You don't want to overdo it, unless that's a look that you like. I tend to like a bit more natural, so I'm going to keep it a little on the softer side. Okay. but I really like that contrast. So I'm pretty happy with that. It looks really good. I am going to, I just saw something else I want to dodge a bit more, so I'm gonna, this is sort of this is the city of Penticton. This is actually where I am right now. And I'm just gonna dodge the city itself out a little bit more. You can't see where I am, but I'm somewhere over there. I'm somewhere in this area over here. Okay. So I'm pretty happy with that. Let's see our before and after. Let's just apply that. So once you click apply, it's just like any other plugin. It's going to take you back to Lightroom, and you can do any final tweaking and adjustments, cropping, and so on that you want to do. Okay, so let's head back to Lightroom. There we go. Now it should bring your image in automatically. There it is. Okay, so depending on how you have your images sorted, it may appear at the bottom. Okay, so I've got it as custom order. I'll just drag that up here. And let's see how that compares to the last one I did. Okay, so this is the previous one I did with Aurora. I actually think I like this one better. The grass looks crisper, but look at how sharp it is. It did a really nice job of keeping everything crisp, merging the images together. HDR software has come a long way from the first days. I used to use Photomatics, and I haven't used that in a really long time. Nick came out with theirs, and then it became Google, and then it became DxO. Haven't used that in a while either. So my primary HDR has been Lightroom for the last couple of years, and I'm actually really interested to explore Aurora a little bit more because I'm quite happy with these results. So I would suggest that if you already have Lightroom and you're happy with the HDR that comes out of it, you may not need Aurora. If you don't currently have an HDR program, you might want to take a look at it, especially if you use Luminar, because I'm going to show you a quick little, I'll just open a sample image here. If you use Luminar, it actually works as a plugin to Aurora and vice versa. So I can take this image, merge it into Aurora. Okay, so this is the sample images provided. And up here, notice I can pull this over to Luminar. So you can do things like add the sun rays filter, all the fun stuff that you love to do, black and white conversions, things like that. So all the fun stuff that you like to do with Luminar, you can pull it from Aurora, and they work really nicely together. So that's my first impression. I think I'm going to start playing with it a bit more because I'm really liking the results that are coming out, particularly like what it's done with this one, and I was not able to get a similar result on Lightroom, and I tried. So I really like the results. I'm going to continue playing with it. If you want to check it out, I'm going to put some more of the images, the before and afters, down below the video. Check those out and go and do the trial of Aurora and see what you think. Let me know your thoughts. Take care and see you next time.